It's the Dev Friday show with Mark and Tim. 'Twas the Dev Friday before Christmas, and that's all you get for $5.
All right, what do you feel? You feeling good, Mark?
I'm loving the holiday spirit.
There you go. I mean, I think this is the same Christmas bumper we've been using for 3 years now. Is that about right?
It never gets old, Tim. It'll never. We will use it when we're like 90 years old and doing the show. We'll be using that same Christmas bumper, and it'll be great.
It's like I'm not the effort I have to go through to find a good track from a place that I can just use it royalty free, and then
No, it works.
yeah, and maybe you have to pay a voiceover guy to say something. No, we're not doing that. All right. Well, welcome to the December, I don't know, series, whatever we call this. I don't know, whatever this podcast is. Welcome. Yeah, we've got fancy, cool Christmas sounding bumper music, and
this is usually the time of the year when we're usually pretty consistent with the show.
yeah, for some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason we'll nail it throughout December.
Maybe it's the holiday season where we have a little bit more time and work's starting to wind down a little bit more at the end of the year. So yeah,
it could be that. I've got some interesting things I think planned for our team, hopefully to do, and a little bit of that break, right?
Are you doing? Don't you usually do gifts for your a gift packet or package or some sort?
No, not for Christmas. Okay. So for our internal, like in the past, we've done dev meetings that were remote, and I would send out boxes to everybody. And then last year we did a dev meeting at PHP Tech, and I had a little bag with some things that I thought were appropriate for a conference. It was one of these. I don't know if you've I know those of you that listen to the podcast, you can't see what I'm putting up in front of my camera, but it's the Owala Free Sips. And I don't know if you've ever seen these, Mark. Do you have a water bottle that you like?
It's a Deer Park. How many ounces?
Water bottle that you like? He pulls out a plastic bottle.
About 16.9 fluid ounces. This is my preferred water bottle.
Give me a break. So Mark's a little bit behind the curve on water bottle technology.
I am.
Just a bit. I saw something the other day. They take water bottle and they put it's like a ring that you put in front of where you're going to drink, and it has scent on it. And it smells like, say, pineapple or strawberry, something like that. And I would love to try it to see if it actually works. But the concept is it makes you think you're drinking flavored water because your sense of smell and taste are very closely related. So, because you've seen like the little packets that you can flavor your water and be like, oh, let's make this. Yes. So you're drinking just regular water, but the idea is you think it's a slightly flavored water because of this smell ring that is right. So there's that. But no, I love the free sips, and here's why. The free sips, like a lot of those water bottles, you press the button and you have to kind of lift them back and drink them because there's obviously a hole in the top from which the water comes, right? The free sips have that, but they also have a little if you look at like a cross section of it, there's a little bit at the lip of where you would drink, and it goes down to a straw. So if you would rather drink like through a straw, it's right there. So I love the free sips. So got those for the team last year, and then got one of those little battery charger like that, like it's about the size of a cell phone, and you plug it in the wall, and so you have portable. Because I figured that made sense.
Yeah.
For being at a conference, but I don't do gifts for Christmas. I do now. That said, we have a company-wide meeting for Christmas, not for Christmas. We have an annual company-wide meeting that happens in December, and there's usually a gift box that comes to everybody that has swag and things like that. So
is it one big Zoom session with
everybody? Yep.
With everybody? Yep.
One big holiday Zoom. It's something like that. I mean, I don't think it's not. Yeah, there's been times when it's been a little holiday themed. I think last year, we had some interesting games last. Oh no, we had
Tim, you have the beard going. I think you need to just you need to present yourself on the Zoom as
young Santa Claus. Young
Santa Tim. Yes.
Yeah, because it's not exactly gray enough yet.
You could so pull it off, and it would everybody would love it.
So we don't really do the Santa Claus thing.
No, I'm just talking for work. Just no for work.
But this is
and when the kids see you in your office, like, Dad, why are you dressed up as Santa? We don't do that.
I should have a big hat, but it's young Santa. So I feel like this could be young Santa, right? Like this is before I got the suit. when I was still working as a developer.
Yeah.
Gonna build a little backstory for Santa. No, but so we don't normally, we don't do the Santa Claus thing, but we go places and there's Santa there, and we got a Christmas
Yeah.
tree. And those of you at a local, I don't. Where do you get a Christmas tree? You got a fake one? Where you fall in that spectrum?
We mostly do the fake. We did one year. We were in between our artificial trees, and we did do
artificial trees.
Yes. Well, that was around with the fire.
Oh,
It was
gotcha.
with house fire. So our other tree pretty much took it.
Yeah,
was gone. And so so we said, okay, we're not going to rush to get in the tree. We're going to kind of take our time with that. Let's do the experience of let's go out to the tree farm and we didn't cut down a tree, but we did go pick one out.
You bought a pre-cut tree at a tree farm?
Yeah.
I don't know if my voice sounds judgy there. I intended it to.
Yes. Well, as a kid, I know I did grow up with that. With my dad was a pastor, and as people who know with the pastors' families, they usually get a lot of stuff given to them or donated to them. So we had a friend at the church.
I was like, I don't remember that being part of
Well,
and that's why we
I
go to
I remember growing up.
growing
up. One of the church members was invited my dad. He's like, just come onto the farm. I have a tree farm here that sell it. Just pick one and as long as you cut down yourself, you could haul it off. So we did that every year as a kid, and that was a good experience.
That was my childhood. We go. There's actually a family at our church that owned a tree farm, and we would go there, and we'd buy a tree from them. Now at that point, we picked it, but he was like a little, and it was weird. I'll tell you this. Like, I don't even remember where they lived, but and sorry, we're getting hyper local here, but for our local audience, you'll appreciate this maybe. It was like on the outskirts of Allentown, so it was like a sidewalk. Like the house was there, and somehow he had a couple acres behind him or something. I don't know, but it was like right in town, and boom, tree farm. It wasn't like you had to go far away. It was like north side of Allentown. Some of those old houses that had a little bit of land behind them. We're like walking in his backyard, which is full of Christmas trees, just picking that one.
So
and
he just grew trees in his backyard for.
I don't remember exactly how much space they had, but it seemed like not as big as some other operations. And I think because of liability, he stopped letting people cut them. So he'd come out and he'd cut it down. But then after we did that, we go to other places, and we tend to go out to a pick your own tree farm, and I cut it down. All the kids want to, every kid was like, yeah, can I use the saw? So they all get down there, they do a couple swipes on it. And then we got a tree last year because we have a big space where we can put a tree. Last year, I think we had I want to say 10-11 foot tree. It was ginormous, and it was ridiculous because if like for large tree, or really any tree anymore, it's best to you remember the old tree stands where you have to like screw the screws in on the side.
Oh yeah.
Finally someone was like, what if we just put a hole in the bottom of the trunk and a big spike coming out of the stand and just drop it on, and you're good. So if you go pick your own tree, they usually wrap it and drill it. So and there they'll try to wrap the tree up. I don't know, for those of you who haven't gone out and picked a tree, I guess in the last century, a decade probably, but they'll wrap it up and they'll take the top and they'll try to straighten it so it's straight. Well, we got this 11-foot tree. That hole was not straight. I had to take off a good 6 inches off the bottom and then roll it around on my living room floor, trying to figure out what straight would be. And with my drill, eyeball what was straight. So this thing wasn't 11 foot, like off by 10 degrees, looking like it was going to fall on the family. So we got a much smaller tree. It's a big room still, but we've got like it may even be under 8-foot tree this year.
So are you all decorated up?
Yeah,
ready for the season?
No time to decorate an 8-foot tree.
Same here.
Yeah. The time to decorate that 12-foot tree, it just kept taking forever because it required ladders. It required ladders to decorate it.
Yeah.
And like I've also seen the fiber optic ones now, the artificial ones. They got the fiber running up through them, and the lights are in the base. That's pretty amazing. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't have anything like that. We have an LED one that's pre-lit, and it just comes in 2 pieces. Okay. So it's pretty easy. Just take it apart.
But it's like actually, it's still
stack
normal
the 2
lights.
pieces together. Boom! It's all lit. Yeah.
The fiber optics fascinate me because you've got those smaller pinpoints of light, and you can change it. Like it's like you can change the colors because you just put it in front of a bunch of lights and just and it's like, oh, look at that, it's color changing, and it's the delivery systems more advanced because it's essentially a light pipe, right? But the technology for lighting it is so simple because it's just put a bunch of lights underneath it where all the fiber optic runs. But anyway, we were cutting our tree. We picked our tree out, and they had a Santa Claus there. And my kids going up to him, probably the worst experience of the day for him.
They start like asking questions, like
no, it's just like this isn't the thing that they do. So they go up. He's like, "Oh, what do you want for Christmas?" And Millie, she's like, "I want a candy cane," because she saw he was giving out candy canes, and she's just like, "I'm here for the candy."
That's what you gotta ask for.
Like.
Keep it
and he's
simple.
like, no, but what do you want for Christmas? And she just wouldn't talk. She's just like, I think I told you I want a candy cane. I'm pretty sure I want it right now. Beulah, my third oldest, she goes up and he's like, what do you want? And she's like, a sloth.
That may have been the first ever time he's heard a sloth being asked for Christmas.
Apparently, so we do, and we're doing it again this
sloth.
Tomorrow. I'll be there's a up in up in Schuylkill, where we go to church up there. They do a community stroll. So we were there last year with the church. We give out crafts, and I use the laser cutter to cut out a bunch of. This year we did Christmas trees and some felt so people can sew it up. And I actually used a 3D printer to print the little yarn needles because I didn't want to have to buy a bunch of yarn needles. And I was surprised. I had initially cut them out of wood, but they became too fragile. I thought the design was really cool because you didn't have to thread it. It was like kind of like a little clip, like you'd slide the yarn in there and pop in, it spread enough and then pop into a little hole. And that part worked great. But it still was too fragile for the size I had to make it to actually be able to go through and lace it up. Kids would break them. We did a little test, didn't work. So I modeled out of plastic, 3D, a 3D printer, and it worked really well. So I was super impressed with that. So we'll be doing that again tomorrow. But there was a Santa Claus there, and apparently she asked him the same thing. I didn't even know this until they were talking about it this last week. About she asked the Santa Claus a year ago for a sloth, and I think he was like, "What's a sloth?" So that conversation seemed to not go well. The conversation this year that Santa was like, you can't have one of those, right? That's a zoo animal, of which I've said the same thing to her, and her answer is pretty much, why can't we start a zoo?
Well, she should be like, well, my dad has a farm. We have
many animals. Exactly right.
So you kind of raised your kids to expect that they could have animals of all kinds just around them.
Yeah. So she's like, I want a sloth. And Santa's like, you can't have a sloth. That's a zoo animal. She's like, well, I want a whole sloth. so that must have been fun for him, I'm sure. So anyway, look at that.
So
look at that wonderful
it is the time of the year. And one thing I was going to ask you, do you have any kind of fun Christmas projects, like technical developer projects?
I was waiting because I think before you were like last year, you're like the top 10 tech gifts, and you came into the show with like, we should talk about the top 10 tech gifts. I'm like, I don't have this list.
We may do that. This is a very early Christmas Dev Friday special.
Sure, top 10.
But think about the month ahead. Do you have anything in mind that you may want to work on or play around with?
Well, as evidenced by the fact that I still don't have the last 2 episodes uploaded yet. My capacity for extra stuff seems to be a little tight right now. It's been hard to stay above water. Is that the way to say it?
Well, one thing that
caught up. But what are you working on this?
That I'm thinking about doing. So I've been, how I like to watch the YouTubes and see what people are talking about and showing off. And around this time of year, what do developers like to do during the season?
Is it like the advent of code type stuff?
Advent of code.
Are you doing advent of code?
So it's one thing that I've never actually
done it.
I have never done it before. I'm ashamed to say I've never done the advent of code. I've heard people talk about it, and usually what happens, I hear about people talking about like late in the game, like later in December.
Right, but today's the day if you want to do this.
Yes,
today is the day.
But overall, I've been trying to get a jump on the season. Like I pretty much have almost all my shopping done, which is kind of crazy. All the decorations up, all the lights are up. Thinking, well, actually, and people start talking about the advent code on YouTube, and I was like, oh well, why don't I take a look at it? And I was like, yeah, I could probably, not expecting to maybe to get through the whole the whole month, but I think it would actually be kind of a fun experience. And I wanted you to guess, what language do you think I'm going to be using for the Advent of Code? Because one thing I was reading about,
This is like
developers
one of
use
those
it.
wrong answers only.
One thing I was reading about, like developers, like to use it to either learn new language at the time,
Right.
or they maybe just wanting to kind of freshen up on the problem solving skills, because Advent of Code is just a series of
It
problems
gets
like each
progressively
day.
harder. It gets progressively harder.
Problems that building each other throughout the month. So what language do you think that I'm going to be using for this?
First, I want to set the, so for those of who aren't familiar with Advent of Code.
Well, this is a developer show, Tim. So we should,
I think there may be some.
Should be aware of, at least be aware.
There's a couple different things going on with Advent of Code. One is every day there's 2 problems. Is it 2 problems or is it just 1 problem?
Well, yeah, there's to unlock the
second problem. You have to,
for the point system that they use. You have to unlock both. Yeah, the stars that they're, I guess, the 50 stars.
Right. Because you want 50 stars by December 25th, which means you're doing 2 of these a day. And what's great about it is they'll give you a code problem. It's all couched in this idea of the elves and Santa, and like this. I'm looking at day 1. Something is wrong with global snow production. But then it comes down, and like there's this thing. We've got lines of this problem. There's lines of text. I want you to take these lines, and I guess this one looks like you're trying to figure out how to sum them by combining the first digit, last digit, whatever, to form a 2-digit number. And what's great though is they say, for example, and they give you the example, and then in this example, they tell you what the result should be. So you have at least 1 test case. So if you want to flex your TDD muscles, you've got a test case already, right?
Because you would approach it from a TDD test-driven development perspective first.
I mean, I would, because that's because
you have the results.
You're going to do is you're going to write your code and you're going to give that example. And you're going to see, does your example produce one?
True.
The answer that they give is an example answer. And then you're going to feel confident about putting in the value. And I guess I'd have to, they ask you then to provide your value or the output or whatever it is. They check it and then you get that star. So there's also leaderboards. And I'm sure someone has already gotten the first one.
Which I'm not even going to, I'm not doing it for anything competitive with this, but there's this whole competitive community around this of how fast you can complete these problems each day, and then there's
I look at the leaderboard right now. There's so many. There's already people have already done it because it was released. I think probably released UTC midnight. Right, and a lot of people are doing there now. What is interesting though is if you would want to do it with me, we could create our own leaderboard, and I could beat you.
Oh, so you can compete against your own subset of
you should be able to, unless they've removed that. You used to be able to set up your own or use a private leaderboard.
Yes, a private leaderboard. Yeah,
so you can create a private leaderboard. You can like if it's a team of people that want to do
teams, that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely.
You could do that, and kind of invite people to a smaller group. All right. So what language are you using for this? And again, do you want wrong answers only, or do you want me to actually try to guess?
Well, it's a language that I've talked about. I haven't talked about in a while. But I'll give you a hint. It's not a language that I'm using for anything professional, any professional or personal projects at all right now.
Not a language that you're using. Okay, so it's not JavaScript.
A language I've used in the past.
It's a language you've used in the past.
A long time in the past.
Are you using PHP?
No, not you. Because I said a language I'm not using, and I'm starting to use PHP on a project. But
what in the world?
Well, we'll get.
We've talked about.
We started to allude to that last week.
Oh, you're talking about like the Dev Friday show?
Because of trying to do a serverless PHP.
Oh, okay. All right.
Distributed
Okay, so now
application
PHP.
For not PHP.
No, but you said you didn't use it in the past. You're not using Ruby, right?
No, not Ruby. No. Why would I go back to using Ruby?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
I honestly don't know.
What are we finger painting here, Tim?
Wow. But you couldn't get past day
you're
one.
Close. I'll give you a hint.
All the gems wouldn't be installed. So
C sharp, you're close. You're close to C sharp. You're getting warmer.
I'm getting warmer?
Yep.
I mean, are you trying to use C?
I'm using C.
Wait, are you using C or C++?
I'm using C. I'm just going back
Seriously,
to raw
C?
C. Yes.
See, if I were going to, all right.
Because I was thinking about the type of these problems is basically just taking in inputs and getting an output, right? It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
So it's just, data in, data out, And honestly, I don't need any like special libraries, don't need anything like that. It's really just all about just solving the problem. So
Mhm.
going back to C, I pulled out my Dennis Ritchie
Oh
C
boy.
book. Remember
Oh
that?
boy. No, I've never written
So
in C. Sorry.
well, back in college where I first, first started to learn about it, I
I
didn't use
understand the
it.
concepts.
It's interesting. I actually, yes, I learned about C. That was like one of the first languages, and in college, after I went to college, that I was learning, but I never really used it for anything real, like because I just jumped into C sharp, really. Going from like C to a little bit of C plus plus in the beginning, and then just jumped immediately into C sharp for professional work. So it's interesting to kind of think about. Okay, I kind of want to go back to it because I'm thinking about the language
All
I'm
right.
using now.
Yeah.
I'm using Python, JavaScript, and like I said, a little bit of PHP. Getting back into PHP a little bit. So those are my three languages that I'm actually actively using on a like projects, or I'm looking to do from a commercial perspective. But I wanted to use a language that I wanted to kind of relearn, or kind of
Mhm.
that just to use for fun. Also, didn't want to be stressed to learn it for something, like for a project or something like that. And this is kind of like a fun kind of every day I could kind of just check in,
Isn't
freshen up on the language a little bit and kind of work through some of the problems. So I thought it'd be kind of fun.
isn't Rust the new C?
Yes, I did consider. I was over
Because
when I
like Rust is the new C and Kotlin's the new
Pa-
Java, right?
the past couple of days. Well, Go would probably be because
Well, okay,
Go,
yeah. Well, no, that's right. Like if I were to try to learn a new language, I would probably go with Go because
yes.
Go to me feels like an OS level language
Mhm.
that
And I agree.
has all of the libraries, all of the bindings, all the thing you need for modern
Correct. And
development.
I did seriously consider the past couple of days when I was considering which language I wanted to use for this was either Rust or Go, because I've been hearing a lot about Rust. I have no experience with it at all.
But now
And
Rust is supposed to be, like I said, like the C, a C replacement, isn't it? Like it's
I would think that Go's more of a C replacement
okay.
than Rust is more of a C plus plus replacement.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of that as almost interchangeable, but you're C++. Okay.
And like I said, Go, I super seriously because that's another language too. If you look at the source code, it does look like C.
Yeah.
Like it's very, very similar.
And the fact that it compiles down to both all three major architectures.
And if I wanted to do like a web API or some type of web service in a very low level compiled language, I would absolutely use Go. And I want to learn that for that. But like I said, I wanted to, with the advent of code, I didn't really want to use a language that I wanted to kind of, because I was also tempted, because if I start learning Go for advent of code, I'll be tempted to start integrating with other stuff like professionally. And I kind of didn't want to really worry or think about doing that right now. I kind of want to keep my focus on the languages that I'm using for my projects, and then kind of keep this to the side. Because like I said, I have no intention to use C for any web service or any project that I'm kind of building on top of AWS. I don't anticipate to use C for that at all. So
yeah, that's not likely.
But I agree, like either Rust or Go was very tempting. I seriously considered learning one of those or using one of those as part of this too, which I think those are great choices, especially if you want to learn it for your job or for learning for a future project.
Did you solve the first day?
I just started looking at it this morning.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I opened up this morning. I didn't, because they just opened it up last night. So I opened it up this morning. I did start to open up my editor, started to write some C code to start, loading in the file, like loading in the initial data, getting that into an array, and then starting to loop through that. And then once I get I guess I have to look at the characters, look for the integers, first and last integers, put them together, add, sum it all up. And then once I do that, then I'll load in the file. So it's interesting. I don't know. We'll see how well it goes. I'm not pressuring myself to, if I don't get the full month done, that's okay. But I'm kind of using it as kind of a fun little check-in. I don't want to also want to spend a huge amount of time on it per day. But if I spend 30 minutes or so, 30 minutes to an hour at most, I think that could be kind of a fun educational exercise.
Yeah. No, I don't think I've ever done the entire thing.
How far do you remember how far you got?
I want to say maybe halfway through.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping to. I think halfway 15, is a good goal for me for the first time doing this. If I can get halfway through it, I think that's good.
So it's fun. I can see the countdown for day 2. That's 13 hours away. Right. So day 1 has 2 problems, right? You solve one, you get 2 stars per day.
Yeah, and
it's coming back.
In order to get the stars, you have to solve both.
Right, you solve you solve the first problem to get the second problem.
Yep.
And it usually is a variant on the first. It usually it changes the test case or changes.
Well, that's one thing I would ask you, since you did this before. Does each day build on top of each other? That's what I heard. So if once you solve
each
that's a good.
each day doesn't build on
So you
top of
can't
each
like
other.
reuse. Well, you could probably definitely copy paste some of the code, but it's not like intended to like you could reuse major blocks of the code that you're writing for the next day.
No, it's not. I don't think it's usually that each day builds on each other, but if I recall correctly, the two problems in the same day are
Yeah.
generally related. So you would think whatever code you had to solve the one, you probably change it a little bit to solve the other. So, you know what? We
I'm
should,
waiting.
and I know.
It's very
Because-
suspenseful pause there.
I know. Sorry about that. So, in your puzzle, like if you look at the puzzle input, you're talking about like what is this, 100 lines of different stuff. So there's tons of test cases in that context, right? Like,
Yeah,
so,
once you solve the initial 3 or 4 lines that they give you, then they have a full document
right,
that
and
has
it's
like
this huge document.
Yeah.
I wonder. I'm just like thinking, why don't I just throw this into ChatGPT?
Oh, well, they specifically say in the instructions, especially for the leaderboard, do not use any AI code generators for your work here. So
Why
yeah,
not?
that is an interesting thing of like, I wonder if people are going to get called out on the leaderboard.
I'm looking at now. General frequent questions. It's an easy way to select and clarify what is authentication. Should I compete? Yeah, depending on it. Sounds
But you bring up a good point, though. If you have no intention of really doing it because you're trying to either learn how to problem solve or really want to work through part of a language, you're just curious of, how would, ChatGPT or how would Google Bard or how would one of these generators actually solve a problem like this?
But they're just doing it in the context of the global leaderboard, and that to me is But like as an exercise,
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see, because I wonder, like the thing is, I don't think it would work. Like I don't think it would solve it out of hand, right? Like if you explain it and then give that input, I wonder if it would do it.
You're saying just to purely just copy and paste the full text and to see how well it would do.
Yeah, if I just said, here's my document, and can you figure that out? Essentially, I don't think it would be good at that.
I'm curious if the author, the developer who maintains this, I wonder if he did that as a test. He just copy and paste it just to see what it would output and to just kind of see is it the way he wrote it, is it enough to at least throw one of the AI tools off so you would have to do a little bit more work to prompt it to help it solve the problem.
I don't know. He's a cool dude. The guy, Eric, is it Watzel?
Yeah, he's a PHP guy, right? I was looking at his background, right?
He's the guy that gives the talk on PHP sadness.
I just saw that. What is that about?
All the things he doesn't like.
He doesn't like about it.
Yeah. I forget what that is.
So he is like the anti-Tim.
PHP is it PHP sadness?
So you're all about the PHP love, and then he's like, "This all makes me sad." Auto went off.
Oh yeah, that was weird. My mouse shifted. I was typing in PHP sadness on the one computer, and then it shifted over here, and I hit a bunch of buttons, tried to add a camera, muted myself, all that kind of stuff. But yes, he's the thing. He's the person behind this PHP sadness thing. So, but it's not been updated for a while, so I don't know if PHP still makes him that sad. Anyway, yeah. So Advent of Code.
So it'll be interesting. It'll
be interesting.
Since we are going to be since we are going to be doing this on a regular basis, at least during the month of December, with our show, I should be able to give you an update and see how far I was able to get during the week. So,
So let's. I don't know. Maybe I'll create a leaderboard and we can see which one of us does better. It'll be you because I won't have time.
No, I don't want any pressure. This is a very low pressure exercise.
Just the leaderboard existing would
I will. Yes, I get very competitive and I stress myself out about that kind of stuff. Yeah, that would not be good.
Well, then I'll just do it on my own, and I'll tell you how well.
There you go. On
Friday. So, and I won't do it on my own, but I'll say that just to see if that'll get you going. Anyway. Oh my! Oh well, I don't know. Can you hear that? Did you hear that thing? That was my compressor kicking in for the laser. I forgot that I had it turned on. There was something else I was gonna forget.
I was gonna ask you.
I have no good segue.
Well, I was gonna ask. Remember, I alluded to at the end because I was curious about maybe how do you guys handle? And then I don't know how much we were talking about.
Show?
Yeah, the end of last show. Because I was thinking about, especially towards the end of the year, are you guys planning any updates? Like, how do you guys handle updates to the software that you are working on? Do you have like a release schedule either before the end of the year, after the end of the year? And then
I mean,
how do you go about
we're updating things all the time.
and so you don't have like milestones that you're trying to hit?
Like in terms of like a user facing product update?
Just like no, I'm just curious because I remember back when I was doing when I was working full time for companies, usually either beginning or end of the year, we kind of had like not really a goal, but like certain milestones that kind of have for assessment purposes that we were using. So I didn't know if you have any kind of any work you're doing now for any releases towards the end of the year or going into the new year or preparing for the new year.
Ours are far, like those type of things are far smaller. It's like smaller. It's like, yeah, we want to release this to the customer. All right, that's the next thing. Let's work on it. Let's release it. Okay, it's done. We'll move on to the next.
Well, since you said you release things often, next thing I wanted to kind of find out was how do you approach releases? Like, what is your testing process like with your how you distribute those updates, like on your servers? Like, do you
like a red, like a what is it, green, blue, and all that kind of
blue,
stuff?
green, or like a canary type release schedule? Like, what do you guys prefer? What's your kind of your workflow with that?
Just do it, man. Just do it.
Just cowboy and just like pull, just flip the switch.
No, I mean we've got a bunch of environments that mirror production pretty well, and then we have one environment that mirrors production very well. And whatever the current state of our develop branch is released on that thing that mirrors production very well. So our QA team should always have the ability to test whatever's in develop. For us, a release is basically saying now develop gets pushed and released. So we push it to our main branch and then release from that main branch.
Can any of your developers push to the development system at any time?
No. So getting code into develop is a pull request against develop, which is then peer reviewed by another developer, QA'd by our QA team, and then finally merged by whoever is monitoring, whoever is kind of like acting as that gatekeeper, like, all right, this makes sense to go in now.
So you have one developer who's managing the releases onto the development, or I like to say like test. So you could say like a dev server or development area. I would say more of like a testing environment.
But it's not a testing. So when I say develop, very closely mirrors production, like in terms of the infrastructure is the same, because how we release, we're it's not bare metal, but we're releasing to we're not containerized, right? In production. That said, every single PR environment has a spun up containerized version. That's why it's very close to production, but it is not exactly production.
Gotcha.
In terms of the infrastructure, it has a containerized version that is built by saying, take develop, apply this pull request to develop. So don't just test the pull request, but actually take current develop, merge them together. So we don't get some weird thing where it's like, well, it worked in the PR. The PR worked. Well, it didn't when you merged it into develop because there were other changes that you didn't realize somebody else made and it broke your code. No, what our CI system does is take develop, merge that pull request. Well, not even technically develop. It's take whatever that thing is targeting, merge it into that branch, and then build the system and launch containers so QA can test that pull request against develop and say, yep, this looks good. So really,
your devs, because you're thinking about you're talking about the dev branch, but then also that you're merging into, but then the system, the containerized system that gets spun up based on production, is that not running constantly, or are you just spinning it up before you do releases for the QA testing?
There's one thing that's long running that is basically the develop branch. So what everything gets merged into, that is the only difference between our main branch and our develop branch is when we actually merge develop into main to release it.
I was just talking about like the infrastructure. Are you running like a containerized version of your production infrastructure constantly that you're doing updates to?
No,
or are you spinning it up right before the
spun
release?
Up before PR.
Yeah. Okay.
So those are two separate things. We are running a very similar to production version that shows you what develop is like, and develop is the thing that's going to become release. But then for each pull request, so like I say, hey, I built this feature and here's my pull request. For that pull request, CI will spin up a bunch of containers that look, that replicate production as much as possible for that particular pull request. So that means we've got like 15 different pull requests outstanding. We've got 15 different test environments that you can go see all 15 of those code changes individually and say, oh, what is, if I want to test it, let me go to that test environment in our CI system, and it's a full on built environment that behaves as if that pull request was merged into develop and then released. So QA can do that. So really that very close to production thing that's always running that reflects the current state of develop, that catches things where it's like, well, this PRA was fine and PRB was fine. They both got merged and develop, but unfortunately we tested PRA without PRB being merged and developed. We tested PRB without PRA being merged and developed. When they were both merged, it didn't even create a merge conflict that we realized. It was an incompatible change. And then that would show up in our long running, very similar to production environment, because that then says, oh, everything that's, every time there's something pushed to develop, I rebuild and re-release onto this test environment. And that's like the last stage of saying, it's really just like, do we have two different things that may have created conflicts? We can test it. We can test it there. But as soon as those two things are merged, then every other PR has the result of them. So it's, if you break something that way, you break it in all the all the outstanding PR environments, because then they say, take develop, merge myself in. So, the process is, while not perfect, in my mind is really nice, because there's an environment for every developer to see their work. We develop locally, and we all have databases that are very close, and we've gotten to the point, and there were lots of work by lots of people, to be basically press a button and we rebuild your database so it looks like it should, right? So it's not like, oh, I had the wrong data in mind. No, you press a button, everybody's on the same database. Our test users, like my account that I would test with locally, is in that data. So anybody can log in as mine on their on their local. I can log in as me on my local. There's not like, oh, I have my own special data. Like the ability to reseed is easy enough that we can do it frequently. So local dev usually is enough to test it, but then you have your environment in the CI system that you can test it there, and QA then test it there, because that's a lot easier than pulling.
And when you say local dev, you mean like local to
on
each developer's machines, like individual. So you don't have like a development server that everyone logs into that has their own kind of environment.
Everybody runs it. Everybody runs it locally, and we spin all that up on containers. And I know our ops roadmap says eventually we want to be running containers for production as well, because at that point then we feel really good, because we have parity across everything. Like, it's the same infrastructure. It's not like PHP was compiled subtly differently on production than it was in the container, although we try to make them the same. It's different because that's a baked in for you doing your cloud stuff, right? Like, it's a baked out AMI that is our operating system that then our code gets released to, versus a container, which is how containers are built, which is built from a Docker file that explains what to do. So there could be some subtle differences between those two that we don't even catch, and that could create some issues.
Are you gonna be running a Kubernetes cluster?
For production, I don't really know what they're using. We are running Kubernetes for
well, I mentioned like
CI.
long term, like you said, eventually you want to have everything containerized.
I don't know what they're planning on doing there. I don't know if it's going to be Kubernetes. I feel like it may not be. I think our ops perspective is far more in line with, we're still going to have an AMI. We're just going to run Docker on it. So it's like, it's very similar to how we manage things now, because we auto scale a lot of stuff. And it's not too much of a departure from our existing auto scaling if we just say, well, launch an AMI that runs Docker and run Docker in that. And now it's like, well, Docker should make sure everything is consistent. And I don't know that we're even going to try to orchestrate Docker with like a Kubernetes, other than just say, okay, no, it's really similar. We still have a webhead that we run, because for whatever reason, we're not too interested in ECS. I think it's just the way it manages auto scaling we're not happy with. And I think it fits more with the way our application needs to scale. It's just to say, no, we're still going to scale at EC2 instances, but instead of having EC2 instances that run PHP, that have all the libraries that we need, like the OS level libraries, we're going to run PHP instances, or not, sorry, we're going to run Linux instances, EC2 instances that run Docker, and just put them there.
That makes sense.
So I think that's the path going forward. I don't know, because that's not my roadmap.
A little bit of diversion from this. Remember how I mentioned in the past I wanted to have my own local cloud?
All right, with like a bunch of Raspberries.
That was my dream, to
Yeah.
have like in my rack server that I have my closet, where I have my switch with my router, because I was able to get the whole house rewired when we rebuilt the house, where everything comes into. I wanted to have one blade of Raspberry Pis that could be.
Yeah.
I didn't get there because Raspberry Pis are still not available, or just because they're not available, just the price of them are just crazy.
It's ridiculous, but Raspberry Pi 5's coming out.
I know. That's interesting. But what I did was I couldn't wait for that, because what you can find really cheaply on eBay is really old hardware. So if you want like an old server, not even a Blade server, just like a Dell Precision server, something like that still has like Xeon processors, you can get one for like $200-$300, because businesses just need to get rid of, because they recycle this stuff all the time. So you can get a lot of hardware that's not maybe like 4 or 5 years old.
You talk about the Blade servers, but
no, I didn't do I didn't do the Blade servers. I mentioned,
was that the one that was like a 4U, and you like a not 4U, but like a 4U in the rack?
Oh yeah.
You shove in individual.
Yeah.
Okay, and they were like, it was a whole computer on a board, basically, that you just shoved
Correct.
into this. I don't even know. Was it common networking? Like, what was I don't even know what was in the box.
Wait, what are you talking about? Are you talking about like for the Raspberry Pi? So
no, I'm talking for like the Blade servers, because they were Blade servers, weren't they? And you'd like shove in a server.
Yeah.
And it would have like a card at the back that it would connect with, right?
Yeah.
And I just don't remember what the overall hardware provided for it, because you were basically building a bunch of servers. And then was it like networking? Was that what was in the overall, like the chassis was? Because those things they'd hook into something. I just don't remember what that thing was. Was it like a real simple switch to handle the networking? For that? Okay. All right.
Yeah, it was a switch.
It was a switch. Yeah. Okay. And everything else, it's like, well, I just got a computer that we have a network interface, because like you need any other IO on this thing. It is just a network. Just a server. Usually,
well, depending upon the racks, like I said, I'm not sure exactly what kind of setup you're talking about, but I haven't really done a lot of infrastructure or physical infrastructure, but I have worked with people who have gone into hosting facilities to kind of see how they're set up. Yeah. So usually you'd have like one rack, and then you'd have like one all connected within a switch, but they all connect to like a video unit. You could then pull out a keyboard, and you could switch between which one you want to access. So my intention was like, because I have this switch in my closet here with my cable modem that comes where all the wires of the house is coming in. It is like this wall mounted kind of server container box I can basically slide racks into, and it actually works pretty nice. So my vision was always to have like a sort of a Blade style server. I could just kind of slide in there, connect it to my switch, and then you're good to go. I could network from everywhere. So I haven't been able to get to there with the Raspberry Pis. Eventually that would be great to have, because they sell kits that could basically put 4 or 5 Raspberry Pis on basically one server plate that can just slide into and it looks awesome. But like I said, the price, but I haven't been able to do that. But I was able to get a couple Dell Precision servers, like Xeon servers. Okay. So now I'm pretty close to so what I have 2, actually, I'm thinking about how many servers I have. Actually, I have 4 servers now in my house. I have one server that I've been using for a while. That's basically just one of those small PC boxes for like a file server, media server that I use with my NAS. So I use that for like doing like media streaming to like for the TVs and doing some file storage kind of maintenance with my NAS. I have my old gaming PC that I used to use. I'm now actually doing that remotely with a Parsec. Have you tried out Parsec streaming?
It sounds. I've looked at a couple of those,
because I tried to do like some remote gameplay streaming with Steam. Right. It's it's okay, but it's a little bit hacky. It worked occasionally, but on my laptop that I was using, just had big issues with it. I found Parsec. Parsec is amazing for like local networks. If you have like one dedicated machine you want to use for gaming that has a good video card in it, from any type of computer, like Mac, Linux, Windows, it could just be a cheap laptop, and it streams super well. So I think, and it fits the resolution of your of your laptop, and I'm super impressed with it. So happy with that front. So I'm now basically
I like that the first image that I see when I go to Parsec, they're showing cat.
Mm-hmm.
Like
yeah.
That's
like, what the L is designed for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that because that's kind of the thing. JetBrains Gateway like offers me that concept where I launched the GUI on my Windows machine, but it's my Linux box that I'm doing development on. But I have the same issue. It's like I would love to be able to use the 3 monitors that I have on my Linux desktop to run Fusion, but Fusion doesn't run on Linux. Does it like act as a secondary monitor, or are you streaming what is actually live on the other computer?
So I'm basically logging in. It's sort of like it's just remote desktop.
Okay,
it's a nicer version of remote desktop. Yeah,
gotcha.
So I'm logging in. Just as long as the Parsec app is running on the host machine, I can just log into it like I do remote desktop, and it works. But the thing is, the performance is amazing. It's just like
really
I'm
fast, right?
I'm like right there, especially if you're on the same network with a good wired network. It's super nice.
But like when I say because I think even remote desktop supported this. Because all right, so I got my Surface Studio that has a screen, right? That's what Surface Studio laptop. It sits here, has a screen. If I connect to it with Parsec on my Linux box, which has 3 screens, is it possible for me to be like, hey, I want this either to take up both screens?
Oh yeah, you could set up.
You could
windowize it.
2 windows. I want to have.
Okay. Yeah.
So I can use both of my monitors.
You can actually. They actually have a virtual video driver that they use.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So it's like a virtual second monitor.
You can set up multiple screens, and then you could have those windowized. Windowized. That's not a term there.
Windowed.
A windowed version of them. Yes, and you could move them between monitors.
All right, we're digging into this.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
What's it cost? What's it cost, Mark?
Well, I tried the free, and I was blown away by the performance. And then once I said, you had to pay for I think it's like $100 a year. You have to pay for the $100 a year, but then once you do that, then it does open up some configuration options that actually for
virtual
doing
monitors, privacy mode, full drawing tablet support with pressure and tilt. What in the world?
So they do open up a lot of nice features, especially if I want to do the virtual desktop or the virtual video driver to really utilize that, so I can run a headless my gaming PC. So I don't have to so I don't have to connect a video monitor to it. That's what I wanted to have. So I had to.
Because you don't even have. Because you don't have a monitor, right?
Basically, it's in my closet. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Now, the thing I don't think it'll help me with is my computers are right next to each other. I would love to be able to run the application in one and be like, let's drag this window kind of over into my other computer. And that's...
I don't know if...
I don't know how that would work.
I'm not sure either. Okay, then the other 2 servers I was eventually started talking about, the Xeon servers. The way my intention, I've set them up, they're working. I haven't done any...
All right, so you got 1 gaming and 2 other. Because you say
2
3
others,
Xeon servers?
Yes.
Also, I just want to know. Sorry, we'll get there.
Yeah.
What is it? This is in your closet?
Yes, it's my closet.
Like, do you roll over your closet and open up the door just to get that nostalgia of hearing all the fans and the hums? And it's like, it's computers.
Well, when I say a closet, when we rebuilt the house, we built this. We built a bedroom down in our basement where are the power the breaker boxes.
Oh yeah,
power comes in.
Yeah.
So I had them set up where because the cable modem line comes into there. So that's where I have the rack set up. It's when I say a closet, it's a nice big area with a wall in front of it. So I open up a door and then it's not like a small area.
But
it's a pretty big area.
You've got a rack there with multiple computers, and the rack that I have in my garage has fans in the rack. Like, what does this thing sound like? Does it have that nostalgia of like you can just hear?
Quiet.
It's quiet.
No, it's quiet. And it's cool because there's a lot of room. It's not like closed off, and it's actually probably one of the coolest areas of the house because it's underground and it's like there's it's right against to the outside, so it's probably I don't think heat's gonna be an issue.
It's just like bringing me back to being at racks back when we had spinning platter drives too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you'd hear the clicks, you hear and it's just like there's computers doing stuff. Like it's the sounds of computers.
So getting the real reason I wanted to talk to you about this was because I have 2 servers now that I'm going to use for like as a lab, like to do some projects on.
Okay. Yeah.
So I have one server that I've tried to bump up the memory up to 128 gigs. I'm going to use that for just running VMs. So just using VirtualBox,
Oh,
just
so
run like VMs.
you're gonna build your computer lab virtually a little bit.
Yes. So one computer's dedicated to that. Another server that only has 32 gigs, but it may increase up to 64. I only want to run Docker on it.
Okay.
So only having Docker processes, maybe,
Yeah.
and kind of just to give me kind of a nice server, just like you're talking about, a server dedicated to running Docker containerized applications,
Mm-hmm.
and then have and then because I also want to manage from a resource perspective, so I could kind of watch the memory CPU utilage of each of the processes and kind of kind of see within the scope of that hardware, how much can I run or how does it work?
You're definitely like the Docker is going to be more efficient on resources than virtualization.
Well, that's why I don't need
for
as much
sure.
memory for it.
Yeah.
But because I'm going to dedicate either like 2 to 4 gigs per, or 8
I feel like
gigs.
you're going to have disk IO issues with the running multiple virtual servers on the other box as well, because whatever translation they have to do to map it to a virtual disk or whatever isn't at least my understanding isn't nearly as efficient as what Docker can do, because it's just the same file system. It doesn't really matter.
No,
this parsecs look interesting. I'm probably going to have to try this, because I've played with some of these things, and it was like most of the time they were geared toward the gaming, and I've even used some of the services that let you launch a high performance game computer somewhere.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I've been trying out the past month, because since I moved back to this laptop and just trying to only use this laptop. I tried out the GeForce Now gaming service, which is it's a little pricey, and I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it, because I'm not sure how much I'm going to use it. But I was just curious and to try for a couple months. And so if you pay for the $20 a month plan, you can stream games that you own. So you have to either own them through Steam or maybe your Xbox app or through your Xbox Game Pass subscription, but you stream it on a 4080 Ti card or 4080 card on the cloud. So nice. As long as you have a good internet connection, once again, so it's a good cable or internet connection, and once again, I was blown away, like the frame rate that I get and also the quality that I get on just a laptop. Also, it's amazing to run like a high fidelity game.
It's the latency, right? I mean, I know that because like we solve streaming, we watch all of this like right now. But it's the latency of that computer
between the inputs too. So if you're moving the mouse around or the keyboard inputs, or if you're using a gamepad, it's amazing. Yes. Wow. So if I played like Doom or like a first person shooter, I was amazed by the responsiveness of it.
Because that's really where it is. Like that's where you want to see it. I wonder. I've always wanted to get back into Microsoft Flight Simulator. I know it's not like a first person shooter, but it's the same concept. It's like you're making him. You don't want to be.
And I think that would work great on
down. What in the world?
Because it takes a beefy PC to run. Even I have a 380 and the game PC. I could definitely run it, but the fan on my game card, video card, just totally like it's running full max. When it runs
you might as well run it on the hardware that you don't need for anything else. Yeah, and if you can basically lease that hardware when you need it.
Yeah. So GeForce Now really blew me away by because
GeForce Now is an NVIDIA? Is it an NVIDIA property?
It's an NVIDIA product. So just as a service, especially if you have a good internet provider or good internet service you're paying for, I know it is a little pricey, and they do have a free plan that you could try it out. So if you're just curious, just want to get 1080p, but if you do pay for the $20 a month and try so you can get access to the higher end video cards. It was just the performance of it it's just amazing. It just shows you too. I think in the future, I don't know if I'm going to buy another video card, because I'd rather put money in just good internet, because I use internet everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'd rather pay.
The video card I wanted to get, but I couldn't want to do this build, was one that would support, what is it? Steam's or Valve, I guess is really what it is. Valve's VR headset. Because that's kind of like the place where I can see.
If you're going to do local VR, you need that for like the hardware, but unless you're going to do
What are you running on? Is it running on a Windows box? Is that what it is? GeForce Now?
On my PC, I think it is. I think it's Mac and Windows. I don't know if they offer Linux support.
So you pick the OS you want to run.
No, I'm sorry. I'm running on a Windows laptop. So the but I mean, like, the client I'm running.
What's in the cloud?
I don't know behind the scenes when I spin up a game, depending upon how you purchase the games.
It's just games.
It's just games. Yes.
Okay, it's not like because some of the other offerings were like, basically we give you low latency remote desktop to either this Windows machine or this Linux, whatever you want to do.
No,
'Cause if
it's
you wanna do
purely for
video
games.
editing- yeah, okay. So,
So-
you're just playing a game on
So
it.
yeah, it's interesting when I started
Okay.
up, especially if most of my games are through Steam. They have like a Steam instance running and like on your screen, so you have to select. Sometimes you have to select the game and just click a button to start it playing like from within Steam, so you see the Steam client.
Okay.
But then also, the thing I was also amazed by it with these larger games that are a minimum like anywhere between 60 gigabytes to maybe
Mhm.
120 gigabytes. It takes a good amount of time to install, even on a fast internet connection. But also the space it takes up in your computer.
Yeah.
It's about like a 10-second install. So just you have to wait like about
so
10
when
seconds
Yeah, they've got it ready to go there.
for the game to load up, and then you're good
Yeah.
to go. You don't have to worry about that.
Nice.
So no more space in your computer's taken up by it, and then also it does cloud saves. So you don't have to worry about that. And it's just I'm super impressed. I think this is
This
the future.
episode brought to you, by the way, by GeForce Now.
That would be amazing. 'Cause I would love a free sponsored GeForce Now subscription. That would just make my Christmas.
That would make your Christmas. Well, I think we know what we're getting, Mark. It says a little button here that says gift cards. That's the best we can do.
And it's interesting. If you just have a laptop, and this is pretty much an ad for it. But if you just have a laptop and you think, okay, it is like $20 a month, and like over a year, so $240. That's cheaper than buying a graphics card.
Oh, that's the thing.
So if you use it every day, and this is your primary way you play games, it is worth it.
You would think, yeah. And it's unlimited to play as many games as you want?
If you pay for the highest plan, yeah.
Okay.
They do time you. They do have like time caps.
When do you
They'll
hit
cap
the
you for
button,
like the lower prices.
When do you hit the button to say, all right, I'm not playing a game, run my Bitcoin miner? How does that? No? Can't no? Oh, that's too bad.
I don't know if they have that feature built into it yet.
So there you go. All right. Yeah, this episode brought to you by GeForce. So anyway, you know what? I had one topic. I had.
Well, we could save this topic for next, just like we did last week. We kind of gave a little bit of a tease. What would you like to talk about?
So, well, this actually comes from. I finished up not editing, but just like mixing down the episode 2 shows ago. So we're on episode 71. So not 70, but this is 69. And at the end of that, you had said something about, after listening to these PHP podcasts, I think I'm going to submit a talk.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think we ever followed up on that. I wasn't sure what your talk was.
Okay. Yeah. Cause I was like, I so wanted to do it, but I was like, I just haven't been able to get the time. But I think in the future, you want me to say what the talk was?
Well, I just want to mention
my idea.
It's too late because the call for papers for PHP Tech ended today. It ended today.
I don't. Okay, put it this way. I will tell you what it is, and then
Right.
you will. And I don't think I'll be going to PHP Tech, but for some reason I am. Maybe I'll find this out myself, and you could tell me if somebody had this.
Because I submitted 5 talks. So
okay.
So
no, I was gonna, because I didn't do enough work testing behind the scenes to really kind of figure out what I exactly wanted to show. I wanted to do like a serverless PHP talk.
Oh, that would be awesome. I think that would be awesome.
But I guess I'm still working on that myself on that.
I think that would be great.
So eventually I'll get there, because I think that'd be kind of fun for a PHP conference.
And I always find it, for me, I find it useful to kind of like if it's serverless, like build into the talk abstract a little bit of the reality of it, right? Because there's so many buzzwords.
Yeah.
And this is not like, these type of conferences are not like AWS reInvent, where it's, you want to see the buzzwords and you want to, it's like, hey, let's talk about let's talk about real serverless. Of course, it's just serverless is just somebody else's server, but you don't have to manage it. And here's how you don't have to use something like Heroku, or you don't have to use something like all these other platforms. You can actually build the serverless that works for you on AWS. And it's actually really simple. And let's just go through in this hands-on workshop, or I don't know. What do you think?
It was
a talk, or do you think it'd be a workshop?
I think I was initially doing it as a talk, but a workshop could be kind of interesting too. But I was thinking just to talk about the general ways to run serverless. Like we talked about, if you run a container or like a Docker,
right?
You can definitely run it as a process. Now you could on like Fargate, on AWS Fargate, or ECS. You definitely do that. But like I alluded to, what I want to do for the our PHP, I'm going to call it the PHP Dev Friday show. That's not it. No,
PHP Dev
we're never
Friday
doing that. But the Dev Friday show, rewrite in PHP, but to do it as PHP Lambda runtimes. So you do
Okay.
have to, I do find it would be interesting to demonstrate and also show how to make a custom runtime for Lambda with PHP. So then you could just write your Lambda functions in PHP and show how to do that.
I think it'd be a great talk.
Yeah.
So we've got 45 seconds left, and we'll see if this teases it. Let's see if there's interest. If there's interest next show. One talk I've given before, and that's the yak-free Docker everyday uses that aren't deployment. So I just kind of go through.
I like that.
Let's just not talk about how you want to deploy to Docker. Let's just talk about what Docker is and show you how to use it. So there's that one. I did. You can handle APIs, introducing API handler, something I hope to open source. Value-based testing, getting the most out of your tests. AI won't take your job unless it will, and your process doesn't work because you aren't doing it. So if you want to know any of those talks, what went into them, maybe we can talk about that next week. But until then, have a good December. I still got to work with finishing up on that bumper.
So maybe I should have asked you now when you did. Because I didn't know you submitted like four or five.
Five.
How much write up did you do on the submissions?
We can talk about that next show. I mean, I'm not saying
that's
that
what I was
I
like.
can tell you that, but we can talk about that next show. So I did
because that's what
five.
I started to work on it. I was like,
Yeah.
I really don't know enough about this to really feel confident to write this up right now. So that's why I put it off. But but I was curious. So you submitted 5. How much? It was like 5 pages that you wrote, or
so one I did before, right? So that's just a like, copy paste. Yeah, I do that. But I've got like for that I've got 3 paragraphs. On
when you
the
submit
everyday
like
Docker.
So it's like a little bit more than an outline form, or just 3 points, and then
it's
what you're going to talk
it's the
about.
talk description. It's the abstract. It's like the thing that then will go on the conference site to entice people to come to your talk.
Okay.
And there is a place to add some additional notes if you want to kind of like convince. And then when I did the keynote, yeah, I had a very short, more abstract concept because I didn't want to give away what the actual kind of, if you want to call it a punchline or what the point of the keynote was. I wanted to tease the problem and tease like the idea of changing perspective without just saying, instead look at it this way, because it's like, well, then come to the keynote to learn that. But then when I in the notes to the organizers, that I wrote more than I've ever written for any other talk that I've given. I wrote like, here's what I'm going to do. Here's why I think it matters for developers. Here's how I'm going to weave, because it was for PHP Tech. Here's how I'm going to weave my history with PHP Tech into it. And kind of like to say like, this is what I see this keynote being. I can't put that in the abstract, but for the technical talks, it's usually just what I put in the abstract. So it's the same thing that would show up on the conference site. So for the yak-free Docker, it's 3 paragraphs, and it just basically makes, though it's a common use case, deploying your application using Docker or even just using Docker to power your local development stack may seem a bit daunting at first, which it does, right? Like if you're like, go from however like you ran PHP in the past in MySQL to doing Dockerized, it's going to take you a little bit. So instead of that, let's just talk about what Docker is. Let's see how we can use it for simple tasks. Let's see how we can use it just to run PHP on the command line instead of having PHP installed. And then once you get that, and you're like, oh, I see more of what it's doing. Now the rest of it doesn't seem that mystical. And I call it yak free because you can just do it. You don't need to be like, oh, before we can do that, we have to figure out how to build a Docker container that mirrors our PHP. No, forget that. Just use it. Just use it and understand it. The other ones, it's about 2-3 paragraphs, and we can, if there's interest, we can talk about it another show.
Yeah, I didn't want to, in my old age, I'm trying not to overpromise, underdeliver.
Yeah.
It's like I used to do at my younger age, or just try to say, oh, I'll write something up and I'll figure out later. So I kind of just be a little bit more careful about it. 'Cause like I said, I really want to do, those are the types of things I want to get into and start to do a little bit more of. So I don't know, just didn't think it was really ready to do that, but eventually we'll see.
The next one, I don't know what other conferences are actually taking place stateside anymore. There's not many, but Longhorn will be around next year. So if you get it in shape early next year, you can probably submit it right around April, something like that. I think is their call for papers. So we'll see. But yeah, like obviously, I put 5 out there, so there's a good chance like one of them, 2 of them will resonate with the people that evaluate them, and then there's also the idea that if there's another person talking about testing, maybe it's like between the two, no, we take the other person's talk, but we'll take your AI talk. The
other thing that I was curious about, because applying to that, is that do they put much preference on where you are coming from as your employer or where you're working?
It depends. I think
especially as me kind of transitioning from academia, because I didn't want to say I was teaching, because I wouldn't be teaching that then. That's why I didn't want to say it was, that's why I was kind of in between. I didn't know how to reference that.
it's hard for me to speak because I'm not that on the evaluation, but I think that matters very little.
Oh, really? Okay.
More as the concern is if they're covering the travel costs. Where are you coming from? But that's usually more of a, are you coming from the States or are you coming internationally?
Mhm.
Because those are significant jumps in pricing.
Mhm.
Other than that, it's like, yep, that's basically what it costs to bring in a speaker. Now, you may be more
Like, do
appealing if
Do they
you're-
have like independent developers do presentate like a lot of
yeah.
presentations of it?
Yeah, I don't think the fact that I work for Phone Burner has much
Mhm.
of a bearing
Mhm.
on it. Now, if you work for, like, if you're coming and you say, hey, let's talk about interesting, test patterns for A/B testing. Oh, and I happen to work for Facebook.
Mhm.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, yeah, but that's part of your talk then, right? Like that's
Yeah.
it. Like you're coming with that experience.
Mhm.
Now if your company's paying the way to get there, or you're paying the way to get there, that may have an appeal too, because then all of a sudden you're a free speaker.
Mm.
You have no cost to them. I don't know how much that factors into that
Yeah.
decision. I guess if you wanted, you could jump on the PHP Ugly Discord and ask that, or even the PHP Architect. But I feel like PHP Ugly is where you ask questions like that. For
Jump on
PHP
the
Tech
Discord.
specifically. Yeah.
Get down in the PHP Ugly. Yeah.
There you go.
Well, what I was hoping to do, like I said, it would be we could do it from a Dev Friday show perspective. That would actually be super fun if we get this working on Dev Friday, and then basically the talk would be demonstrating that, and so it would be a little bit of a promo for Dev Friday too.
There you go. Because
So
I'm terrible. I'm terrible at that.
That's the long term my goal of like any way we could find a way to promote it.
I have an idea to do a talk on, because you keep on saying like, yo, you still doing PHP? Is PHP having is there a resurgence in PHP? It's like, I don't know that there was an unsurgence. I don't know that we lost
people.
it.
Well, since everybody's coming back around and saying that all this front end JavaScript doesn't isn't performant, we need to go back to the days of PHP. Yeah,
I guess
they're taking a second look at it, like saying, "Ooh, PHP 8.3. Yeah, some nice features now."
Look at that. Yeah, I have this desire to pitch a keynote that's basically the premise of that, and that would work well, because then I can say I'm on this podcast and this other guy keeps saying, "Well, is PHP making a comeback?" I'm like, I don't know that it went away, and talk about like why PHP and why it's still useful, why, and because there's something, and I wondered, but also self-deprecating enough, right? Because we do some funky things, and it's okay to laugh at yourself. So I don't know. Anyway,
we'll see.
I feel like this was a decent show.
Well, like I said, we get back in a groove during December, so a little bit. It's a Christmas spirit.
There you go. All right, I will actually try to mix things down and get them up. I'm going to end the stream. So